Hello everyone, and welcome to this IFATC practical test demonstration. The purpose of this video is to guide you through the fundamentals of controlling ground and tower frequencies in a practical test environment. It is important to note that no two tests are alike, and the airports and situations you will have to deal with may vary. That said, these fundamentals of controlling will remain constant no matter your testing scenario, and will transfer directly onto the expert server once you reach that stage. Before we start, I would like to let you know that this demo was made to simulate the IFATC practical test. However, this is not affiliated with the official IFATC training process in any way. Now, let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to do before we start is set up the ATIS frequency, which will determine what runways will be in use during the session, and will include any special remarks or procedures that may be important for pilots to know. In this case, I see that the winds are coming from 130 degrees at 18 knots, with gusts up to 28 knots, as displayed in the upper left-hand corner. Seeing as runways 14 left and 14 right will be just 10 degrees off from this, and effectively having the aircraft landing and departing into a direct headwind, I will select both 14 right and 14 left as landing and departing runways. There is no additional information required here, so I will go ahead and publish the ATIS on Alpha. Here we are about to have our first aircraft calling in. Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra calls inbound for touch and go. The first thing I will need to do is issue a pattern entry for him, so I tell him to enter right downwind for runway 14 right. Since there are currently no other aircraft in the pattern for that runway, no sequence is required. Once I am confident that he will be the first to land here, I can go ahead and clear him as number 1 for the option. This gives the pilot the choice to perform a landing, touch and go, low pass, or missed approach. With this clearance, I will make sure to include a pattern direction, so the pilot knows which direction to fly after performing the touch and go. Since they are cleared on 14 right, I will keep my pattern separate by giving them right traffic.
Cleared for the option. Runway 14 right. Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra.
The next aircraft to tune in will be Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha. In the event that they choose to request a transition, I want to make sure that I know my transition altitude. To calculate this, I will add 2,500 feet to the airport altitude, which in this case is 499 feet. Then I will round up to the nearest 500-foot increment, giving me my transition altitude of 3,000 feet.
Miles to the east at 5,700 feet. Requesting transition.
Next up, we have India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo requesting to push back. I can see that there are no aircraft behind them, so I can go ahead and issue them their pushback clearance. I will designate them to runway 14 left, as this is the closest runway to their gate. This is followed closely by a pushback request from November 23 Uniform Sierra and Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta. There is no conflict here from November 23 Uniform Sierra, so I can go ahead and issue the pushback clearance. For Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta, however, I already have India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo pushing back into the same space, so I will tell Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta to hold position until the conflict is clear.
Runway 14 left. Pushback approved.
Next, I see that Zulu Alpha Victor India is calling inbound for landing. I already have Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra on right downwind for runway 14 right, so I will tell Zulu Alpha Victor India to enter right base runway 14 right with a sequence to follow behind Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra.
Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta.
Zulu Alpha Victor India, enter right base runway 14 right. Number 2, traffic to follow is on right downwind.
Enter right base, runway 14 right, behind the traffic on right downwind, Zulu Alpha Victor India.
Again, it's clear that Zulu Alpha Victor India will be the next to land after
Zulu
Victor
Alpha
Tango
Victor
Alpha
India,
Delta
wind
Sierra,
180
so I will
at
clear them as
13.
number 2,
Number
clear
2,
to land.
runway 14 right, cleared to land.
Number 2, clear to land, runway 14 right, Zulu Alpha Victor India.
Heading back to ground, November 23 Uniform Sierra is now ready to taxi. There are no conflicts, so I will let them taxi to runway 14 left.
Toulouse Blagnac
Now,
ground.
India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo requests to
ready
taxi. I can see that they will be heading to an intersecting taxiway with November 23 Uniform Sierra, so I will issue India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo their taxi clearance, but tell them to give way to the aircraft ahead, so they know to follow November 23 Uniform Sierra.
Contact tower when ready.
Taxiing to runway 14 left. India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo.
India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo, give way to aircraft ahead.
Give way to aircraft. India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo.
Now that the conflict with Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta and India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo is clear, I can go ahead and issue them their pushback clearance. Back on tower, I'm going to start thinking ahead in the event that Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha calls inbound. I don't think that there will be quite enough space for them to descend to right downwind and turn base before Zulu Alpha Victor India is on too short of a final. So I'm thinking about sequencing Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha after Zulu Alpha Victor
Pushback
India.
approved. Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta.
As predicted, we now have Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha requesting inbound for touch and go. I will give him a pattern entry to right downwind and sequence him as number 3 behind Zulu Alpha Victor India,
Golf Uniform
as I
Romeo
planned.
Romeo Alpha, enter right downwind runway 14 right. Number 3,
We now have the first of the aircraft on the ground ready for takeoff. There is no traffic on final for runway 14 left, so I will clear November 23 Uniform Sierra for takeoff, and I will be sure to include a pattern direction with the clearance. To again ensure separation between the patterns on my 2 runways, this time I will issue left traffic. At the same time, Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta is ready to taxi, so with no conflicts in sight, I will clear him to taxi to runway 14 left. Now India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo is ready for departure. Once November 23 Uniform Sierra starts to accelerate, I can have India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo line up and wait on runway 14 left. While India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo is lining up and November 23 Uniform Sierra is starting their takeoff roll, I can take this opportunity to zoom out and issue Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha their landing clearance. As Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra has already crossed the runway threshold, Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha will now be number 2 for the option. Again, I will make sure to issue a pattern direction with their clearance.
Line up and wait runway 14 left.
Now that Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra has started to climb on upwind, I can be very proactive and issue their sequence, which will be number 3 behind Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Sierra on right downwind. I can also see that November 23 Uniform Sierra has lifted off the runway, so using anticipated separation, I can now clear India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo for takeoff, once again making sure to issue a pattern direction with the clearance.
Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra, number 3. Traffic to follow is on right downwind.
Next, I can clear Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra as number 3 for the option. This time no traffic direction is necessary as they already know to make right traffic. At the same time, I can be proactive with November 23 Uniform Sierra's clearance and clear them as number 1 for the option on 14 left.
Cleared for takeoff.
Victor
Runway
Tango
14
Victor
left.
Echo Delta is
India
now
Charlie
ready for
Alpha
departure
Romeo
as well.
Echo. Toulouse
Seeing
flag
as
left
India
tower.
Charlie
Victor
Alpha
Tango
Romeo Echo
Victor
has not
Echo
passed them
Delta.
yet, I
Ready
will
for
ask them to hold
departure in
short of runway
sequence at
14
runway
left.
14 left.
Once
Remaining
India
in the
Charlie
cabin.
Alpha Romeo Echo has
Victor
passed,
Tango
I can use
Alpha Delta
anticipated
Sierra,
separation,
wind
knowing the
180
relative
at
speeds of the
13.
aircraft,
Number
to clear
3,
Victor Tango
runway
Victor Echo
14
Delta
right.
for takeoff
Cleared
on
for the
runway
option.
14 left,
November
of
23
course, with a
Uniform
traffic
Sierra,
direction.
wind 180 at 13. Number 1, runway 14 left. Cleared for the option.
Number 3, cleared for the option. Runway 14 right. Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra, holding short
Again, I
runway
will be very
14 left.
proactive here with my
Victor Tango
sequences
Victor
and
Echo
sequence
Delta.
India Charlie Alpha
Victor
Romeo
Tango Victor
Echo
Echo
as number
Delta,
2
wind
behind
180
November
at
23 Uniform
13.
Sierra on left
Runway
crosswind.
14 left. Cleared for takeoff. Make left traffic.
Cleared for takeoff. Runway 14 left. Victor Tango Victor Echo
Zooming
Delta.
out, the next task I
India
will be
Charlie
thinking
Alpha
about
Romeo
is Zulu
Echo.
Alpha Victor
Number
India's
2,
landing,
traffic
as they
to
are coming
follow
to a
is on
full
left
stop.
downwind.
I want to make sure
Number
that there
2,
will be enough
behind the
space
traffic on
for them
left
to exit the
downwind.
runway
India
before Golf
Charlie Alpha
Uniform
Romeo
Romeo
Echo.
Romeo Alpha lands. As Golf Uniform has just started to turn base, with 5 nautical mile spacing, I'm thinking that there should be no conflict, but I will want to keep my eye on that. Now, I will again be proactive with my clearances and clear India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo as number 2 for the
India
option
Charlie
on
Alpha
runway
Romeo
14
Echo.
left.
Wind 180 at 13. Number 2.
I can also
runway
take this
14
chance to
left.
sequence
Cleared
Victor
for the
Tango
option.
Victor Echo Delta behind
Number
India
2,
Charlie Alpha
cleared
Romeo
for the
Echo.
option. Runway 14 left. India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo.
Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta. Number 3. Traffic to follow is on left crosswind.
Number 3, behind the
Here,
traffic
we have
on left
November 23
crosswind.
Uniform Sierra
Victor
requesting
Tango
to change
Victor
to
Echo
runway
Delta.
14 right. Because they are changing runways, they will need a new pattern entry to the new runway, so I will tell them to enter left downwind for runway 14 right and sequence them as number 3 behind Victor Tango
November
Alpha
23
Delta
Uniform
Sierra
Sierra.
on right
Enter
downwind.
left downwind runway 14 right. Number 3. Traffic to follow is on right downwind.
I can then go ahead and clear them as number 3 for the option, and because they are changing runways, they will need a new pattern direction to make right traffic instead of left. I now see that Zulu Alpha Victor India has touched down and is decelerating, so I will go ahead and issue them an exit runway command. India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo is already cleared for the option on runway 14 left, and Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta is sequenced behind them, so no additional sequences for those two are needed. However, Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta will now be cleared number 2 for the option instead of number 3.
Zulu Alpha Victor India.
Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta. Wind 180 at
Zooming in,
13.
I can see that
Number
Zulu
2,
Alpha Victor
runway
India
14
has started to
left.
take their turn
Cleared
off
for
of the
the
runway,
option.
so I am not worried
Number
about
2,
Golf
cleared
Uniform
for the
continuing
option.
their approach.
Runway 14 left. Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta.
Toulouse Blagnac ground.
Now Zulu Alpha Victor India
ready
requests
to
to taxi
proceed.
back to the runway, and with no conflicts, I will clear them to taxi back to
Zulu
runway
Alpha
14
Victor
right.
India. Taxi to runway 14 right. Contact tower when ready.
Taxiing to runway 14 right. Zulu Alpha Victor India.
Next up will just be another sequence for Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha behind November 23 Uniform Sierra on final.
Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha. Number 3. Traffic to follow is on final.
Number 3, behind the traffic on final. Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha.
Toulouse
Now we have
Blagnac
Zulu
tower.
Alpha ready
Zulu
for
Alpha
departure.
Victor India.
Judging the
Ready for
distance of Victor
departure
Tango
at
Alpha
runway
Delta
14
Sierra
right,
to the runway,
remaining in
and the time it
cabin.
will take for Zulu Alpha to line up and start rolling, I
Zulu
decide to play
Alpha
it safe
Victor
and
India.
have them hold short of runway 14 right.
Holding short runway 14 right. Zulu Alpha Victor India.
And now I can go ahead and clear Golf Uniform as number 3 for the option.
Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha. Wind 180 at 13. Number 3. Runway 14 right. Cleared for the option.
Number 3, cleared for the
Now that I see Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra is about to cross the threshold, I'm getting ready to line up Zulu Alpha to fit them in
Zulu
before
Alpha
November
Victor
2-3.
India. Line up and
Once I
hold
have my
runway 14
anticipated
right.
separation, I
Line
can
up
go
and
ahead and
wait
clear
runway
Zulu
14
Alpha for
right,
departure
Zulu
with the traffic
Alpha Victor
direction.
India.
Zulu Alpha Victor India, wind 180 at 13, runway 14 right, cleared for immediate takeoff, make right traffic.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 14 right, Zulu Alpha Victor India.
Now, we have
Victor
Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra requesting to change to runway 14 left. I can't issue them a pattern entry to left downwind yet due to traffic immediately to their left. Instead, I will have them extend upwind, and I will sequence India Charlie as number 2 behind the traffic on final. Once I have my separation, I can then issue Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra a pattern entry to left downwind for runway 14 left behind India Charlie on left crosswind.
Traffic on final. India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo.
In the meantime, I can sequence Zulu Alpha behind Golf Uniform on right downwind.
Zulu Alpha Victor India, number 2, traffic to follow is on right downwind.
Number 2, behind the traffic on right downwind, Zulu Alpha Victor India.
Victor Tango
After
Alpha
giving the
Delta
pattern
Sierra,
entry to Victor
enter
Tango
left
Alpha
downwind
Delta
runway
Sierra,
14
I'll
left.
then clear
Number
India
3,
Charlie as number
traffic
2
to
for
follow
the
is on
option.
left crosswind.
Enter left downwind, runway 14 left, behind the traffic on left crosswind. Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra.
India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo, wind 180 at 1.
I can also clear Zulu
Number
Alpha
2,
as number
runway
2 for the
14
option
left,
on runway
cleared for
14
the
right.
option.
Number 2, cleared for the option, runway 14 left, India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo.
Zulu Alpha Victor India, wind 180 at 13. Number 2, runway 14 right, cleared for the option.
Number 2, cleared for the option, runway 14
I'll then
right,
sequence November
Zulu
2-3
Alpha Victor
as number
India.
3 behind Zulu Alpha on right downwind.
November 23 Uniform Sierra, number 3, traffic to follow is on right downwind.
Number 3, behind the traffic on right downwind, November 23 Uniform Sierra.
Zulu
Shortly
Alpha
after,
Victor
Zulu
India,
Alpha requests a
requesting
change to runway 14 left, so I will give them a pattern entry to right downwind for runway 14 left with a sequence to
Zulu
follow
Alpha
Victor
Victor
Tango
India,
Alpha Delta
enter
Sierra
right
on
downwind
left
runway
crosswind.
14 left.
As
Number
this
3,
happens, I see
traffic
that
to
Victor
follow is
Tango
on
Victor
left
Echo
crosswind.
Delta has decided to come to a full stop on this
runway
pattern,
14
so
left,
I will issue them an
behind the
exit
traffic
runway
on
command.
left crosswind,
Finally,
Zulu Alpha
I need to
Victor India.
resequence November
Victor
2-3
Tango Victor
as
Echo
they will now be
Delta,
number
when
2
able
following
turn
Golf
left.
Uniform
Contact ground
instead
on the
of following
taxiway.
Zulu Alpha.
Wilco, Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta.
November 23 Uniform Sierra, number 2, traffic to follow is on right base.
Number 2, behind the traffic on right base, November 23 Uniform Sierra.
Now I can clear November 2-3 as number 2 for the option on runway 14 right.
November 23 Uniform Sierra, wind 180 at 13. Number 2, runway 14 right, cleared for the option.
Number 2, cleared for the option, runway 14 right.
I can then
November
clear
23
Zulu
Uniform
Alpha as
Sierra.
number 3 for the option on runway 14 left, making sure to issue a new pattern direction to left traffic.
Toulouse Black
At the
Nut
same
Ground.
time, Victor Tango Victor Echo Delta requests to taxi to
parking.
parking, and with no
Zulu
conflicts,
Alpha
they are
Victor
free
India,
to taxi to
wind
parking
180
at their
at
discretion.
13. Number 3, runway 14 left, cleared for the option. After the option, make left traffic.
Number 3, cleared for the option, runway 14 left, Zulu Alpha Victor India.
It is at this point that I realize that I did not give a new clearance to Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra, and in my haste to
Taxi
clear
into
them,
parking.
I
Victor
forget to
Tango
issue a new
Victor
pattern
Echo Delta.
direction to left traffic following their runway change to runway 14 left. This emphasizes the importance of sequencing and clearing early in order to keep track of what clearances are
Number
required
2,
for each
cleared for
aircraft.
the auction. Runway 14 left. Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra.
Here, I see that the spacing on runway 14 left is pretty tight, so I'm already preparing for the possibility of a go-around. However, I will try to avoid that by giving India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo an expedited runway exit command.
India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo. Exit runway when able and contact ground. Please expedite. Traffic on final.
Wilco. India Charlie Alpha
Once I
Romeo
see that
Echo.
India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo is past the next viable runway exit, I know it will be unlikely that they will be clear of the runway before Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra crosses the runway threshold based on the speeds of the two aircraft, so I'm going to go ahead and call that go around nice and early for Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra.
Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra.
For the rest of the
Go
session, I
around.
will be
Make
assuming
left
that all
traffic
aircraft will be
runway
full
14
stopping, so I'll be looking for that ground speed of about 70 knots to give each exit runway
Going
command.
around. Make left traffic runway 14 left. Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra.
Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha. Exit runway when able. Contact ground on the taxiway.
Wilco. Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha. Toulouse Blagnac ground. India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo. Request taxi to parking. Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra. Requesting departure to the south.
India
Now we have Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra requesting to depart the airspace to the south. I'll approve their departure request, and once I see that there will be no conflicts, I can go ahead and issue them a frequency change.
India Charlie Alpha Romeo Echo. Toulouse Blagnac ground. Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha. Request taxi to parking.
Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha. Taxi to parking. At your discretion.
Taxiing to parking. Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha.
Frequency change approved.
Frequency change approved. Victor Tango Alpha Delta Sierra. Good day. Thank you. Good day. Golf Uniform Romeo Romeo Alpha.
And that's all there is to it. Remember to be proactive with all of your commands, pay attention to everything happening in your airspace and on the ground, and you'll be able to fly through any test just like this one. Thanks for watching this demonstration, we hope you learned something useful, and we hope to see you controlling the skies of the expert server soon.